Alrighty, welcome back everyone. We just talked about some of the improvements that need to be made for title contenders as they head into this year. Definitely some big time things to watch throughout this season as we head into what's going to be a pretty wild year with a number of title contenders around. But let's get into some fall camp intel. There's still scrimmages going on all around the country. It went on this weekend, but still a number of things coming out from those scrimmages all around the country. And we'll start in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, where things are going really well. I'll be totally honest with you. When you get into this season, there's so many questions around Alabama, and frankly, I still have plenty of questions about that defensive side of the ball, but the offense is coming along, and that is a huge, huge piece of news for Alabama fans. Ryan Williams and Caleb Odom, two very talented freshmen. Caleb Odom came in as a tight end. I think he'll likely move to wide receiver and work more out on the outside. Both of them are incredibly talented and are going to be really, really hard to keep off the field. And frankly, that's a theme that you'll see throughout this segment. There are a number of guys that are making quick impressions in fall camp. Jeremy Bernard is an absolute dude at wide receiver as well, definitely making waves and figures to be the top guy this upcoming year. Definitely someone to watch there. Jalen Milroe seems like he's coming along pretty nicely, putting everything together. The run game seems like it's going to be really, really good. And frankly, that's no surprise to really anyone. When you have the group that they have, it's pretty incredible what you're capable of doing. I think he's going to have to get a little bit further down the road when it comes to throwing the ball, but overall, he looks like himself. He looks like the guy that you want him to look like, and maybe take a little bit of a step forward, but we won't really know until we get on the field at the end of the day. And it sounds like the quarterback depth is a little bit better than some of us might have thought going into the season. It sounds like Ty Simpson is ready to roll. Austin Mack is there as well, so I'm not necessarily super worried. Obviously, Jalen Milroe going down would not be great at all by any means, but it sounds like they have people behind him that could pick up the slack if that were to happen. Moving over to Oklahoma, it sounds like they have a little bit of reason to worry in Norman right about now. The offensive line has obviously been the thing that everyone's worried about, but Jackson Arnold has had some turnover troubles throughout fall camp, and it's something that goes back even to last season. You saw the performance against Arizona was not what he wanted by any means. Threw, I believe, 3 picks, had a fumble, was not the prettiest performance by any means, and I think it's a year where he's going to have to take care of the football. This defense is coming along incredibly well, which we'll get here into in a second, but at the end of the day, this is a kid that really just needs to execute. He doesn't need to do anything overly special, but if he's going to turn over the ball, they're going to be in a really tough position this upcoming year. The defense is coming along exactly the way Brent Venables wants. Danny Stutzman, in fact, had a pick against Jackson Arnold, I believe a pick 6 in their scrimmage this past weekend, and I think Brent Venables was close last year. I think he had the guys that he wanted, at least relatively. I think this year, these are the guys. These are the guys that he wanted. This is his team at the end of the day, and he's ready to roll with this defense. I think it's going to be a really, really good unit led by Danny Stutzman. So a really fun team that, frankly, might just be winning games a little bit ugly this upcoming year. Moving over to Auburn, the quarterback position is an interesting one because Peyton Thorne is playing pretty good football. He's doing exactly what you want him to do, but the quarterback depth is not what they want it to be at all. You know, Walker White is there, but he's likely the backup, and he is a true freshman. He is likely not ready to play SEC football right now, so you really need that guy healthy, and that doesn't even answer all the questions they have at quarterback. You need Peyton Thorne to play a little bit better football than he did a year ago. Now, both line of scrimmages look really strong. The offensive line being strong is obviously huge for Peyton Thorne. The defensive line being strong changes the game for Auburn because that was an area, at least over the past 5 years or so, where they were getting pushed around a little bit, or at least more than they should be. And if that was going to continue, they were going to have a big-time problem as they head into this year. But it looks very, very strong. And the wide receivers look incredible, as you would imagine. There are a number of freshman wide receivers that are making noise at Auburn, whether it's Perry Thompson or Cam Coleman in your picture right there. But the guy I want to talk to you about is Bryce Cain. He's someone that has made a number of different headlines throughout the last week, as he had an incredible scrimmage this past weekend, apparently. So it could be Auburn just entirely leans on freshmen. Now, they do have Keandre Lambert-Smith, who is likely going to be one of their top guys next to Cam Coleman, but overall, it might just be a lot of freshmen catching passes for Auburn this upcoming year. Another guy to watch is Kieron Crawford, a very talented linebacker. He's turning heads, came over from Arkansas State, so a little bit of a step up, but definitely is turning heads and could easily play a role this upcoming year. Over at Florida, they did have Montrell Johnson go down, which is obviously a huge deal, excuse me. But it sounds like they feel really good about the running backs they have behind him. Trayon Webb is a very talented kid. Jacoby Jackson is the one that is getting a ton of headlines. He is really making some noise and likely will have to play a big role, at least early in the season, as they work Montrell Johnson back into the lineup. The not so good thing is the offensive line. It sounds like the offensive line is not where it needs to be, and frankly, when you're talking about a quarterback like Graham Mertz, not necessarily the best at extending plays and getting out of pressure. So you're going to need to keep him upright. And the way you do that is protecting him a very, very good amount. And frankly, you're walking into a buzzsaw in week one if your offensive line is not ready. Whether it's Ruben Bain or Tyler Barron or some of the other guys that have popped up over the last little bit. Akeem Isidore is another one to watch. So they'll get dominated if they're not ready walking into that game. And right now, it doesn't sound like they're ready. So definitely something to watch as we head into that first week and over the next couple of weeks, see if they can make some strides that they desperately need to make. Over at Georgia, frankly, there's not too much to take away from this scrimmage because so many guys sat out. Carson Beck and a number of the other starters were not playing in this game, and frankly, I do not blame Kirby Smart one bit. You do not need to see anything from Carson Beck at this point other than him being on the field in week one and on the field every single week going forward. So not necessarily overly crazy there, but there were some things to pull away, that's for sure. Edge rushing looks just incredible this upcoming year. Looks like it is going to take the step forward that it very much needs to from last year. Gabe Harris is a name to watch, a very young player that is kind of breaking out slowly throughout fall camp and definitely could this upcoming year. Michael Williams, Jalen Walker, Damon Wilson, and plenty of others will play big-time roles coming off the edge, but they seem to feel really good about that position. And then Roderick Robinson is someone that has gotten just as many rave reviews as you could possibly imagine, and there's going to be a number of linebackers that meet him in the hole and do not like it by any means. He's an absolute dominating force and someone that is going to run through you. He's not going to run around you. He's not going to juke around you because he doesn't need to. He's about 240 pounds and is an absolute monster running the ball. So very much like Roderick Robinson, I think he's going to play a huge part in this offense right there next to Trevor Etienne, Then we have Clemson going right back to the freshman wide receivers. Bryant Wesco is a name that we all know, definitely one that has made some noise, but TJ Moore showed up in summer and has already made some noise in this offense. Definitely both of them will play big-time roles in this upcoming year. They do still need some of those veteran wide receivers to come along a little bit further, but overall, looks like the duo they got from high school looked just incredible to start. And then you have a couple of guys on the defense that have gotten shouted out by some big-time guys on that defense, where you talk about Wade Woodaz and TJ Parker highlighted a couple of freshmen in that group. Sammy Brown and the guy on Sammy Brown, the very talented linebacker, and the very talented corner, Ashton Hampton, is the guy that I really want to talk about here. A very talented kid, and frankly, the back end is the part of this defense that I'm worried about the most, and I'm not too worried about it, to be totally honest with you, but if a freshman cornerback can come along and play some really good football for them, that obviously helps. So Ashton Hampton is a name to definitely watch. It sounds like Dabo Swinney wasn't overly happy with the way that the scrimmage went. It's not necessarily like everything went wrong, but it sounds like he wants a little bit more from his team as they get closer to the season, and definitely will be something to watch as we get a little bit closer. Florida State, the defense is going to be incredible. This defense is one of the best units in the entire country, and it's not just a guy like Patrick Payton, who frankly is an absolute monster, but Saheem Brown is the guy that I want to talk to you about. He is making all types of plays on the back end, frankly, is playing like a first-round NFL draft pick, an elite player for them on that back end, and someone that really came along a long ways last year, but if he can take another step forward, this back end is going to be downright terrifying. I'll be totally honest with you. It does sound like DJ U is just kind of executing. He's doing the things that he needs to do. It's kind of a little bit up and down as we kind of expected with some of his history, but overall, it sounds like he's doing just enough. I don't know if it's going to be the explosive offense that they had a year ago with Jordan Travis, but as long as he can execute this thing and that defense can stay off the field for at least a normal amount of time, I think they'll be more than fine. It sounds like Malik Benson is his go-to guy right now. Kyle Morlock is someone to watch at tight end. And then you have really young guys that are making some noise. Elijah Moore is definitely a name to know. Amari Williams is a tight end / edge, so kind of that Nick Harbor type vibe. A very, very talented player that maybe he gets on the field a little bit this year. Maybe they wait a little bit for him, but right now it's sounding like it's kind of hard to keep him off the field. But then finally, let's talk about Iowa, because I'm sure a lot of you have seen the stat line from Cade McNamara, and it was not pretty by any means. He went 7 for 21, 20 yards, a pick that was a pick six, one fumbled snap, and no touchdown. So not where you want to be by any means, and kind of where Iowa has been the last couple of years. But it sounds like one of those things that it was something that Josh Pate was talking about on his show, where maybe it's a blessing in disguise. I don't necessarily think Cade McNamara is a bad player by any means. We saw what he did at Michigan. He obviously is capable of playing good football. The issue is they need someone a little bit more dynamic. And I think Brendan Sullivan, the kid that's sitting right behind him that came over from Northwestern, might be that guy. Now, he's not necessarily an electric runner. I'm not necessarily saying he's going to be an absolutely electric player that's going to totally turn this offense around. I just think he gives you a little bit more ability than Cade McNamara does. I don't think it's necessarily this massive gap, but Iowa needs anything that they can get. So I definitely think this could be one of those things that Cade McNamara was not necessarily going to be the best choice at the end of the day, and moving on to someone like Sullivan could be a huge thing for this Iowa offense. So overall, a ton of things still coming out. Frankly, we will likely do another segment tomorrow on this because there are so many things coming out, a couple of injuries coming out. In fact, Texas just suffered another running back injury, which we'll get into tomorrow, but a number of things to break down, and we'll continue breaking it down throughout this week. But let's take our final break here, and when we come back, we're going to do a little bit of a recruiting update. A team that you have not heard about a lot in the recruiting trail is making some real noise, and we'll get into that right after this, so stick with us.